the colors themselves mean. Of the various myths the book mentions on color, one of them is can't do it right, do it big. Can't do it big, do it in color. Well, that's not always going to be the case. We want to start simple. The best designs will actually work in monochrome as well as in color. Now, why is this? Well, as one of the articles I wanted you to read for this class, and is linked online, take a look after this, the web and applications are increasingly dealing with different users, different monitors, different formats, different languages. Color's not always going to be the same for everybody, especially when you start dealing with users who are colorblind or have some small degree of color disablement. And the book mentions it's actually much more popular than we think. So, why was starting in monochrome so useful? Well, we can see how they'll see it at the outset, so the majority of users can get the best possible experience from the colors that we use and the style that we've created. One of the myths the book mentions is can't do it right, do it big. Can't do it big, do it in color. Well, that's not going to be true. In fact, it's usually best to start simple. The best designs work in monochrome. Now, what does that mean? Monochrome is talking like black and white grayscale sort of atmosphere. The best designs start here for a few reasons. One is because when we get down to that level of detail, absent of color, when we're just in black and white, sure, it's not going to attract as much attention, provide as much contrast, but it is going to show us how effective our symbol is. And it might even draw attention to, wow, if I don't color this red, no one's going to have any idea what this button is, for example. The other big reason is for our user audience. There are a variety of color abilities out there. Colorblind, some people see certain colors, some people have limited color recognition. There's also a ton of different monitors, color schemes, color scales, brightness, contrast settings. Not all colors are going to look the same from user to user. Therefore, as a designer, we need to be conscious of that, and we want to design for the broadest base possible. Starting in monochrome is going to give us that ability. Now, minimize quantity but maintain contrast. Well, this reminds me of a story from law school when one of my fellow students used to highlight in 5 or 6 different colors at least. Used to highlight the notes in a case study. There'd be one color for prosecution, another color for defense, another color for the judge, another color for evidence, a color for arguments, and on and on and on. Well, by the time she finished, she looked down at her binder, and there were so many different colors. Not only could she not make heads or tails of the text, all those highlighted text that used to stand out now blurred together because everything was highlighted. And she gave me the famous quote, "It looks like a rainbow threw up in my binder." Well, the same thing's true for UI. The more colors we get, the more everything gets lost in the field of color. We want to use colors to maintain contrast. The more colors we throw at the problem, the less each individual color is going to stand out. Now, bright colors and contrast certainly help distinguish text, but it also helps readability. When our colors stand out from the background text, it's easier to read. And as the book mentions, as you get older, colors need to be brighter to help us read. That's why black text becomes very hard for elderly. So, white text on a darker background. Or, for example, my background here is this sort of dark blue, violet sort of color. The white text gives more contrast than the black. Tools like that are very effective. Now, color expectations. What are our expectations when we see a certain color? Well, red, yellow, and orange tend to be urgent or necessary actions. These are warm colors, bright of the brightest. We go from our color scale, Roy G. Biv, everyone should know. Red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet. Roy G. Biv. That's our color scale. So the red, orange, yellow are the brightest, most vivid colors in the color scale. They attract our attention the most. So if we're already using colors on the page, but we have something that needs particular attention, use one of these warm colors. Blue and violet, because they're much more neutral or much darker, they're better for status or background info. Green works for that too, but green is the universal symbol for okay, right? Green is go, green is good. So we want to keep in mind that if I'm using green, it's usually going to be a positive indicator. I don't want to use green when something's wrong. It's not going to attract enough attention. Now the book mentions some specifics with each color, particularly the negative effects of many colors. So I want to point that out now. You can go and check out the full scale. I particularly want to mention on page 715 and 717, they give you foreground and background combinations. So if you're ever curious about, I'm using blue text, what would it look good against? What would provide the most contrast? This is yet another time when this book is a really handy desk reference. Though I do think it's funny that the book uses dark white as a color. How exactly do you get dark white? Isn't that black? Anyways, we all know black is the best standard for text. Other darker colors are best, but when we start getting lighter backgrounds, when we start getting darker backgrounds, we want to use a lighter text color. I also want to point out on 699 some of the negative effects of colors. Blue can be melancholic, red can be alarming, things like that. And as many positive attributes as green has, environmental and such, it can also be envious or jealous. So there's always some negative connotations. Be mindful of those in the context that you're using it. This is in fact why most shopping places tend to be muted colors, tans, yellows, warm but not too bright. If you were in a place with all red, it would seem very aggressive and it actually creates a sense of urgency in the user. But a darker like maroon can soften that effect. So be curious next time you go in a restaurant or a shopping mall, somewhere like that. Check out some of the colors. They're designed on purpose to evoke specific reactions. So we've hit the major highlights I wanted to talk about. Now there's going to be a few additional tasks for you to follow up with this lecture. First of all is the 3 articles. You can find them in the course documents. They'll be in course documents listed under today's lesson. There's 3 articles, 2 on color and 1 on using icons and text. In addition, I have an assignment for you on bulletin board. What I'd like from you on bulletin board is a couple things. One is on the message board to go ahead and post a link or an example, a picture, or just describe some of the most effective icons you've seen. I'd also like you to look for some really bad icons when you just don't know what they mean. Take a screenshot, crop it down in MS Paint, and you can make a JPEG of it, something like that, and post it. Or you can always put it on a free web hosting. I'm not sure what Blackboard's image hosting capability is. Either way, I'd like 1 positive icon and 1 negative icon from each student. You will be scored on this. I'd also like people to feel free, the reason we're doing this on the message board, is to go on and respond. Maybe it'll give you a good idea of an icon you can use. Maybe you can say, I disagree, I think that's a great icon, or you can say, yeah, that one really does suck. So go ahead and contribute to the conversation. The last part of your assignment this week will be a quiz based on the lecture that this is now concluding. So the quiz will be on Blackboard, part of that automated quiz system. I'm still working with it to get just the right results, but either way I'm going to give you a couple days to get the material done before I post it. So what I'd like you to do is make sure you have this lecture completed, that you've understood and taken some notes and got the hang of the gist of most of the stuff, as well as read the material in the book from these 2 chapters assigned for today, and the 3 articles. Again, the 1 on icons and labels and the 2 on color. The quiz will be pertaining to that material, and it must be completed before next Thursday's class. So please make sure you've done all the reading, listened to this lecture, and completed the quiz before next Thursday's class. I'm also going to give you the opportunity, probably by next Thursday, for some feedback. See what worked and what didn't as part of this online experiment we're doing. So I hope you enjoyed it wasn't too boring, and you got a good sampling of what color and icons mean to